An emotional farewell to a father and a president. Richard Nixon's family gathers to celebrate his life and mourn his death as the nation and the world look on.
Strong, brave, unafraid of controversy, unyielding in his convictions, living every day of his life to the hilt, the largest figure of our time, whose influence will be timeless. That was Richard Nixon. How American. May God bless Richard Nixon. And may God bless the United States.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Christine Devine.
And I'm John Beard. It was an emotional ceremony that brought many to tears as Richard Nixon's birthplace becomes his final resting place. Hundreds gathered and millions more watched on television as his family and the nation bid farewell. Bernard Gonzalez is at the Nixon Library tonight with more.
John, you know, today people were waiting for the rain to begin during the services. It held off, but it's coming down tonight. But as you can see, it hasn't stopped people from coming here to pay their final respects to former President Richard Nixon. The way that I would describe the ceremony, very simple but extremely elegant, certainly befitting a former president. I guess the one thing that you can say about Richard Nixon, despite whatever one thinks of him, he certainly did leave his mark on the U.S. and on the world. For the final time, Hail to the Chief rings out for Richard Milhous Nixon, but it's America that serenades his body to the altar. Nixon's political career weathered as many dark days as the clouds that threatened this service, but just as Nixon's legacy held up through the bad times, so did the weather, leaving the guest list of who's who in American politics, including 4 former presidents and current President Bill Clinton, cold but undaunted. The first eulogy was delivered by Nixon's Secretary of State, Henry Kissinger, who reflected on what he calls the former president's enduring contributions to world politics.
In the conduct of foreign policy, Richard Nixon was one of the seminal presidents. He came into office when the forces of history were moving America from a position of dominance to one of leadership. Dominance reflects strength. Leadership must be earned. And Richard Nixon earned that leadership role for his country with courage, dedication, and skill.
But for all his accomplishments, Nixon's legacy will always be flawed by the Watergate scandal. However, at this ceremony, it had no place.
Today is a day for his family, his friends, and his nation to remember President Nixon's life in totality. To them, let us say, may the day of judging President Nixon on anything less than his entire life and career come to a close.
Richard Nixon chose his hometown of Yorba Linda as his final resting place, intentionally avoiding the spotlight of Washington, D.C. And in the end, the recurring theme at this service was his dedication to home and family.
Anyone who ever saw him together knew that his beloved Pat and his girls, Tricia and Julie, were everything to him.
And finally, he was laid to rest beside his beloved wife, Pat. And the rain continues to fall here in Yorba Linda, but the people also continue to come, as you can see behind me. For those of you who are interested in coming out to the library, the latest information that we have is that it will reopen tomorrow at 10 in the morning and will remain free to the public through parts of this week, next week, and then possibly through the end of the month. You need to call the library, though, to make absolutely certain these are the guidelines that they're going to go by, because we haven't been able to confirm those, but we know for certain that tomorrow is going to open up at 10 a.m. and then for a time be open free to the public. Reporting live from Yorba Linda, I'm Bernard Gonzalez. Back to you in the newsroom.
Thanks very much, Bernard. I understand also the flowers will remain in place tomorrow as well. Thanks. Some of the most powerful people in the world were gathered in Yorba Linda today to honor Richard Nixon in death. 5 American presidents, foreign dignitaries from all over the globe, and longtime Nixon loyalists. Senior correspondent Chris Harris reports.
Richard Nixon's role in the world could be measured by who came to the funeral. A delegation from Japan, the Prime Minister of the Bahamas, leaders from the Arab world and Africa. In all, nearly 100 nations were represented. It was a gathering of the powerful, the once powerful, the want to be powerful. The names of the VIPs, a who's who of American policy and politics. House Speaker Tom Foley leading a congressional delegation. Henry Kissinger, George Shultz, Caspar Weinberger, Senate Minority Leader Bob Dole, James Baker on the right, Brent Scowcroft, George McGovern, the Democratic presidential candidate that Nixon buried in that 1972 landslide. The focus, of course, was Richard Nixon and the accomplishments of a man whose impact on world affairs in the mid and late 20th century are unparalleled. But scattered through the crowd of mourners today were the Nixon loyalists, the men and women whose lives were changed for the good or the bad because of Richard Nixon. Spiro Agnew, Nixon's first vice president, forced to resign for taking kickbacks while governor of Maryland. Rosemary Woods, who took responsibility for that infamous gap in a Watergate tape. G. Gordon Liddy, sent to prison for Watergate. Charles Colson, the White House counsel, who masterminded dirty tricks and the enemies list. Elliot Richardson, the attorney general who quit Nixon rather than fire the special Watergate prosecutor. Watergate was not mentioned by name, but it will always be a part of Nixon's legacy, but only a part. House Speaker Thomas Foley.
I think the sense of his overall contribution to public life has blurred those difficult challenges that marked his departure from office.
House Minority Whip Newt Gingrich says that Nixon would regret the changes that Watergate brought.
I think that it's a much more adversarial, much more skeptical, and in some ways much more destructive environment today. I think that he would say that it's very important in a free society to maintain some sense of respectability.
This was also a gathering of four men who would like very much to run for the GOP presidential nomination in 1996. Former Vice President Dan Quayle, Senator Bob Dole, former Housing Secretary Jack Kemp, California Governor Pete Wilson. But more than anything else, this was an extraordinary and historic tribute to a man whose influence is not gone. In Yorba Linda, Chris Harris, Fox 11 News.
Earlier today, more than 40,000 people filed past Nixon's casket to pay their respects, many of them braving bad weather and waiting sometimes up to 8 hours. But as Barbara Schroeder reports, when the line was shut down, some people were shut out.
Everybody's getting moved back, so let's get the little ones out of the way, okay?
It's the last thing this crowd wanted to hear.
There'll be no more public viewing. Thank you.
America the patriotic became America the angry.
Now I want in.
Ma'am, it's been closed. I do apologize.
Well, your apology doesn't mean a thing to me.
But my apology won't open the doors either. That's for the Secret Service.
I'm walking through.
No one really expected so many people to show up. At one point, the line snaked around Yorba Linda for 3 miles.
Were you surprised at the crowd?
Yes, very much. I really didn't think that President Nixon had these many friends.
Those who did make it inside were a little awestruck. So many different reasons brought people here.
If it wasn't him, China wouldn't have been open.
There were a lot of African-American men who came home from the war when Mr. Nixon signed, and that's very important to me.
President Nixon was one of the greatest statesmen this nation has ever known.
And I live right down the corner 20 years, and I'm not going to miss it because...
Meanwhile, back at the end of the line, the frustration was soothed by a touch of America the kind.
Oh, they're for you. They're free.
They're free.
Susan Hansen had made some cinnamon rolls.
We live right here, and just all the people have come out, and they've waited for 7 hours, some of them, and now are not going to be able to go in, and I just really feel bad for them.
Does this help a little bit? You didn't get in and somebody came out here on their own?
It really does, because I love to eat.
I want to drop off my gloves by the president.
Then there was Lou Tafuto, who flew in from New Jersey last night. He's a good example of America the forgiving. He didn't like Nixon the politician, but he came to appreciate Nixon the fighter. Lou came all this way to leave boxing gloves as a tribute, but he was shut out.
I inscribed them for him. You want me to read to you guys? Oh, God. Okay, I got it, Coach. Hit first, hit hard, hit fast.
Lou never did get to go inside, and neither did this woman.
I'll get through somehow.
A kind security officer finally helped her understand it was over. But the boxing gloves did make it inside. We were able to use our press pass to put them in the pile where so many other mementos were dropped off today, all of them taken inside to the funeral service. It has been said Richard Nixon was a man who craved respect. Today, he got it.
And you're only as good as your last fight.
Yeah.
The man won.
In Yorba Linda, Barbara Schroeder, Fox 11 News.
The nation's capital honored America's 37th president today in two very traditional ways. The bell at the Washington National Cathedral rang 81 times, the age of former President Nixon when he died. And at the Washington Navy Yard, sailors honored the late president with a 21-gun salute.
Here in Los Angeles, the City Council paid tribute to the former president this morning. Council President John Ferraro read a touching personal letter given to him several years ago by Mr. Nixon. Then Ferraro offered his own special tribute to the 37th president.
With your permission, members of the council, we'd ask that we adjourn in memory of President Richard M. Nixon. And I would ask that we take a moment of silence and say, in your own way, to say goodbye to Richard Nixon.
After a moment of silence, members adjourned early in memory of President Nixon. John, you were out there today at today's services. Is there one thing that stands out the most in your mind?
A couple of things. Henry Kissinger, when he said that Richard Nixon achieved greatly and suffered deeply, and the line we just saw a moment ago from President Clinton when he said that it's time to judge Richard Nixon by the entirety of his life and not just part of it. Those things I thought made a special
Summed
meaning.
it up quite well.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
All right, still to come tonight on Fox 11 News, a priest who planned to celebrate his 30th anniversary as a clergyman this week is murdered, shot in the head. We'll have that sad story.
Plus, startling information about high crime areas in Los Angeles. It may surprise you.
And have you tried every way imaginable to stop snoring or stop somebody else? Wait till you hear the latest.
I'm Jillian Warry. Well, we've made it halfway through a very busy weather week. You think it's bad here? I'm going to show you some pictures from Kansas. It'll make you feel a little bit better that is. And it's still raining over parts of the Southland. We'll tell you where and what our forecast looks like when we come back in a bit. Stick around.
You hope it never happens to you. Stuck in the middle of nowhere, completely out of touch. At first, you hope someone will stop. But then you think, what if someone does stop? Don't go out there without a phone of your own. This portable features one-button 911 dialing for only $157 after rebate. Call 1-800-AIR-TOUCH and ask how to get $100 worth of free calls.
Hey, Vern, forget the barbecue. You need to check out all the great new deals and leases they're making today at Cerritos Auto Square. Buddy, they have got more makes and models on sale right now than one could grasp in an entire lifetime. It's like a giant salad bar, only with cars. So come on, Vern, the great buys are at Cerritos Auto Square. What do you say we hop on down there right now and kick a few tires? Leave those ribs about ready, Vern.
Don't miss the discounts during daylight savings days at Cerritos Auto Square now.
If you're not shopping at Ross,
you're paying too much for name brand and designer clothing.
And who wants to do that?
Hey, you gotta have your easy music? Set your radio button to Easy 100.3. That's the one in the middle button. It's Easy 100.3.
Nobody does it like you, the way that you do. Nobody's got the power to please me. Nobody does it like you, puts it all together better to make it easy. Nobody does it like you, Hoover. Nobody does it like you.
Police in San Diego are searching for the killer of a Los Angeles priest gunned down in his motel room. Tonight, the LA Archdiocese mourns the tragic death of Monsignor Luis Gutierrez. Al Naipo has a story.
While vacationing in the Pacific Beach area of San Diego, Monsignor Luis Gutierrez was shot and killed early Tuesday by an apparent intruder at his motel. Police say the 61-year-old pastor from Los Angeles was found by a fellow priest in an adjoining room who heard a loud noise. Gutierrez was reportedly shot in the head. Los Angeles Archbishop Cardinal Roger Mahoney reacted by saying, "The scourge of crime and violence affecting us all takes yet another victim, but at this time, that victim is a fine priest of the Archdiocese of Los Angeles." News of the murder rocked the Church of the Holy Spirit, where Monsignor Gutierrez had just been assigned. Parishioners and workers here at Holy Spirit are shocked and saddened. having lost their new pastor before they really had a chance to get to know him. But they knew him well at the nearby St. Paul Parish, where Monsignor Gutierrez served as pastor for the last 10 years. Before that, he was pastor at Sacred Heart in Boyle Heights. This Saturday, Monsignor Gutierrez was to celebrate his 30th anniversary as a priest, but a gunman's bullet ended that and a lifetime of service to the people of Los Angeles. Al Naipo, Fox 11 News.
Police call it one of the most serious cases of spousal abuse they have ever seen. A Corona man charged with torturing, raping, and beating his wife and another woman. He's being held on $1 million bail. Police say he held the two women for 6 months with death threats against one of their children. Finally, his wife called 911 but was too afraid to talk. Officers were sent to the address anyway, and the man was arrested. Well, do you think you should know which part of town is the most dangerous? The LAPD is going to tell you after some of that information was leaked to a local paper. Jane Wells has more.
Betty and Horace DeMille remember North Hollywood over 40 years ago.
It was nothing when we came out here.
But North Hollywood, like the rest of LA, has changed. And unknown to many residents, police have been mapping out just where the worst crime areas are throughout the city. The data on North Hollywood was leaked to the Daily News, and it turns out the worst part of this end of town is right near the Hollywood and Ventura freeways, between Magnolia and Burbank from Tujunga to the city line. This is a neighborhood of small markets and apartment buildings, where workers on a break don't mind relaxing out by the tracks as long as there's daylight.
On the night, it's kind of scary because everybody's hanging around.
And this is the neighborhood where Bella Kaplan has had her lighting store for 21 years.
Did you notice our front door is locked? Locked, not shut, it's locked. So if somebody comes that we do not want to leave in, we just don't.
She works right next door to a hotel that she claims is frequented by transients. LAPD had not planned on making this sort of data public, but after the Daily News leak,
to the extent possible, we are going to fully release all 18 of the partially completed projects.
But he says this is not really a secret since the reports are based on crime stats that are already public record. However, police do not intend to release any tactical information in the reports on how they're going to deploy officers in these areas. No sense in letting the crooks know their plans. But Bella Kaplan does not like the news getting out that her neighborhood is bad. She thinks that will only make things worse.
I think the crazies, when they hear something, they act on it. They build on it.
But Betty DeMille says let the whole world know. It can only help.
I think that if we had lots and lots and lots more police, that maybe would run all these characters off or sober them up or whatever it takes to stop all this crime.
Police plan to release their information late next week, so you can soon learn just which neighborhood in your part of town is the last place you want to be. In North Hollywood, Jane Wells, Fox 11 News.
Time now for a look at our nightly tally of gun deaths. So far this year, at least 466 people in Los Angeles County have died from gun violence. In Orange County, the number is 39. In Riverside and San Bernardino counties, 35. And in Ventura County, the number is 6. That brings the total number of deaths from gun-related violence in the Southland since the first of the year to 546.
An unusual development in the Rodney King lawsuit. An LAPD officer says he shouldn't be forced to testify because he's depressed. An LAPD psychologist told the judge that Officer Mark Conta suffers from situational depression. She says fellow officers treat Conta badly because his testimony at the previous federal trial ended with a conviction of 2 officers accused of beating King. But a lawyer for one of the officers says Conta should take the stand and take some tough questions.
He should obey the subpoena and testify, and he'll be cross-examined. What his motives are, I'm not blessed with a crystal ball.
The judge ordered that another doctor examine Conta to determine if he is able to testify. Police arrest several suspects in connection with those deadly bombings in South Africa. We'll have the very latest.
Plus, the pictures tell the grim story. At least 3 people are dead after a tornado wipes out parts of Indiana and Texas.
And a fun ride in a hot air balloon turns into a nightmare. Stick around. We'll have details on this frightening accident when Fox 11 News continues.
Fox 11 News is brought to you by the Toyota dealers of Southern California. We give you more for your money.
Introducing the all-new 1994 two-door Camry Coupe. Any guesses where we got the idea? the new Toyota Camry Coupe, developed and built in America.
We look for heart, for desire, for real communicators. Dan walked in one day, sat down, and he said, hey, I'm ready to go to work. Right now he's working at the return desk. He'll pull 2 carts at a time and get returns put away. Not a day goes by where he doesn't high-five somebody or tell somebody a silly little joke.
Make your home more comfortable with Manville fiberglass insulation. Manville insulation can save you money all year long. And best of all, it's available at a guaranteed low price every day at the Home Depot.
There's not a thing in my store Dan can't do.
Sure, department stores sell very nice designer suits, but at very expensive prices. Other places say they sell designer suits for less, but only C&R sells the same suits as the department stores for up to 50% less. And only C&R has the lowest price guaranteed. We'll beat department stores and anyone else's price or give you the item free. Yes, free. Now, if you still buy a suit somewhere else, here's a hat to match. C&R, the lowest price or it's free, guaranteed.
Over 800,000 Mercury Sable owners are already on the road. So right now is a good time to see your Lincoln Mercury dealer. $59 a month. Get 24 months with the protection of standard dual airbags and available anti-lock brakes, plus V6 power. Airbags and available anti-lock brakes, plus V6 power and all the innovative style already admired by 800,000 Mercury Sable owners and their neighbors. So lease a Mercury Sable, the proven winner. See your Lincoln Mercury dealer right now.
In South Africa tonight, dozens of suspects are behind bars in connection with a wave of bombings, the latest at the Johannesburg airport, injuring 16 people. Attempts to disrupt the elections apparently did not work. Voter turnout is higher than anybody expected. Crowds broke through fences for their chance to vote. ANC candidate Nelson Mandela cast his ballot today, and so did South Africa's President F.W. de Klerk. Meantime, police are rounding up suspects in the Johannesburg bombings. Jeremy Thompson has that story.
The blast that ripped through Johannesburg airport was just the latest of a spate of bomb attacks. Clearly part of a well-orchestrated terror campaign to strike fear into the hearts of South Africa's voters. The car bomb parked outside international departures was similar to those used in earlier attacks in Johannesburg and Germiston. Even as detectives uncovered clues linking the explosions, police arrest teams were already closing in on the suspected terrorists. Within an hour, 31 right-wing extremists have been arrested. Most of them picked up on a shooting range near Rustenburg, which had been used as a bomb factory. Police found a large cache of weapons, ammunition, and bomb-making equipment. Detectives later displayed a homemade bomb they'd seized after a tip-off, a 2-foot-long cylinder packed with fertilizer, diesel, and mining explosive with a very short fuse. Among those arrested, members of the Iron Guard, the black uniformed elite corps of the Afrikaner resistance movement. Eugene Terblanche, leader of the neo-Nazi AWB, has not been detained, but it's believed his chief of staff, Alec Krewagen, is in police custody, and there are plenty more right-wingers determined to fight for a white homeland. Despite the roundup of suspected bombers, police warn that the threat from extremists may not be over yet. Jeremy Thompson for Fox News, South Africa.
Investigators think pilot error may have been a factor in yesterday's horrible jet crash in Japan. Investigators aren't sure what caused the China Airlines jet to crash on a runway at Nagoya Airport. They think the pilot may have pulled up too fast during an aborted landing attempt, causing the jet to stall and then crash. Meanwhile, relatives of the 262 people killed are getting the bad news outside a makeshift morgue. Only 9 people survived this crash, including a 3-year-old boy whose mother is believed dead.
Japan's 51st prime minister took the oath of office today. The Japanese parliament elected Tsutomu Hata on Monday. Today he was sworn in before the Japanese emperor. Hata takes over for Morihiro Hosokawa, who resigned early this month after just 8 months in office following a controversy over his personal finances. In Sarajevo, random sniper fire struck a 5-year-old boy in the head as he was playing. Doctors rushed to save his life in a makeshift operating room. Meanwhile, people wounded during the shelling of Gorazde were flown to hospitals in Italy and England. The United Nations says Serb forces have complied with an ultimatum to pull out of Gorazde to avoid the threat of airstrikes.
Back in this country, more deadly tornadoes, and today they claimed the lives of 3 people and filled emergency rooms. In Lafayette, Indiana, a twister struck a Venetian blind factory and hit a trailer park. 51 people were injured.
We have massive destruction in this mobile home park. We have trailers overturned. We have trailers piled on other trailers. We have trailers wrapped around trees.
Another tornado touched down in Gainesville, Texas yesterday. That's the second big one to hit that region in 2 days. This one also damaged trailers and injured about a dozen people. The governor has declared a disaster area in 12 North Texas counties. In Kentucky, a hot air balloon veered off course and into trouble. A downdraft blew the whiskey bottle-shaped balloon into power lines. Rescuers pulled 3 passengers to safety. One of them was a radio DJ, said he thought he'd do anything for ratings until now.
Another high-security autopsy is planned after the mysterious death of a Pennsylvania man. Hospital workers suffered rashes and other ailments after trying to save the life of a 76-year-old man. Eyewitnesses say his skin began blistering and peeling. Also, there was a chlorine-like smell.
Strange thing about the whole case and where we started getting suspicious is almost immediately we noticed that his skin was very hot, and hotter than I've ever felt a patient being before.
A coroner says garden chemicals may be to blame for those mysterious fumes.
In a Michigan courtroom, the so-called suicide doctor Jack Kevorkian told a jury that his mission was not to help Thomas Hyde die, but to help a man with Lou Gehrig's disease end his suffering.
Homes and things like that. We let animals die very peacefully and humanely, while humans are made to suffer, because we substituted a relatively indefinable word called sanctity for a much better definable word called value.
Kevorkian's testimony is aimed at focusing on a loophole in Michigan's suicide law that allows doctors to relieve pain, even if it hastens death. If convicted, the retired pathologist faces up to 4 years in prison.
Still ahead, more aftershocks rattle the Southland, but they didn't appear on the Richter scale. We'll tell you why.
Plus, some very big news from a factory in Chatsworth. Not only did First Lady Hillary Rodham Clinton pay them a visit, but she handed them over a record-sized check.
The Hollywood Walk of Fame, filled with history and fond memories, but it'll never look the same again. We'll tell you why.
I'm Rick Garcia. It's the only story more common than Magic Johnson retiring, the Raiders moving. They're still talking about it. And tell me, what's in these baseballs? Something that makes them fly, according to some folks. Those stories are on the way.
You're inside the Good Guys for our Showers to Flowers 3-day sale. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday only, with savings in all departments. Magnavox 4-head Hi-Fi VCR or 25-inch TV, your choice, only $269. Apple Macintosh Performa 460, complete system $11.99, save $50. Sony 10-channel cordless phone with dual batteries $99, save $30. And you'll find better service and better selection, so why go anywhere else? The Good Guys, where better doesn't cost more.
This is my new Toyota 4x4, and it's really great. Okay, so it wasn't the least expensive truck I could buy, but I know I made the right choice. Hey, I studied up, and according to the Complete Car Cost Guide, when it comes to overall cost of ownership, it's one of the best values I could drive. I mean, once you add up things like insurance, mileage, and resale value, my Toyota truck is actually going to cost me less.
We give you more for your money.
Hey, let's go this way.
No, I'd rather go that way.
I know what you'd rather do, but I'd rather go this way, so let's go.
No. We're going that way.
This way.
That way.
Pactel, a leader in cellular and paging, is splitting off from Pacific Telesis Group and changing its name to AirTouch, an independent company dedicated to keeping people in touch.
I'll call you when I get there.
No, I'll call you.
No, I believe I will call you.
Introducing AirTouch Cellular and Paging, the new name for Pactel.
Elegance in luxury linens, woven from long, staple Egyptian cotton, 220 threads. The distinctive sateen weave creates a soft, supple feel. This is Royal Sateen by Crown Crafts. The collection is available at Stroud's, including Elysia, Stroud's newest introduction. And now, for a limited time, you can save an extra 20% on the complete ensemble of Manon Navy. Stroud's, the linen experts. No one sells luxury for less.
Did you feel them? 2 aftershocks rattled parts of the Southland this morning, 3.5 months after the big Northridge quake. Caltech and our Cube system registered the first aftershock at 2:39 a.m., magnitude 3.1. was centered 3 miles northwest of Chatsworth. Then about 3 hours later at 5:33, there was a second quake measuring 3.5. This one was centered a mile southwest of Simi Valley. You may notice I did not say on the Richter scale. That is because the Richter scale is no more. The late Charles Richter, a Caltech seismologist, invented his scale in the 1930s, but you see, technology has come a long way. Now seismologists have abandoned the Richter scale. Today's measures calculate quake magnitude in different ways, but they are adjusted to produce numbers very similar